Hi, Mrs. Gorby, and it's time to read some more of the 14th Goldfish. Before I start today, I want to go over just a couple of words that may be new to you. There's the use of the word charlatan, which basically means someone who is falsely claiming to have a special skill or knowledge, basically someone that's a fraud. And then there's a word cajole, which means coax or persuade. And then near the end of the reading today is a word frond, which is basically a palm tree leaf or leaves on a fern. So chapter 7 is called Our Town. The public bus after school is crowded, and someone's been eating too much garlic. My grandfather has been complaining the whole way home. He's not a fan of middle school. He says it's boring and a waste of time, especially gym, but it's the textbooks that really have him riled up. He waves his science book at me. Can you believe it? Not a word, not a footnote, totally glossed over. What, I ask? Me, I should be in this book. The bus stops and kids shuffle off. My grandfather stares at the textbook. How can they seriously not mention Sigarsky? Probably because Sigarsky is a quack, a voice behind us says. We turn around and it's the goth kid. He only takes the bus once in a while because he usually gets a ride from an older kid in a beat up car. A quack? A quack, my grandfather sputters. Who are you? The kid introduces himself. Raj. He looks at me and he has long tufts of black hair that is flopping over his forehead. I'm Ellie Cruz, and this is my I start to say, and then I stop myself. My cousin Malvin. My grandfather glares at Raj. What do you have against Sigarsky anyway? My science teacher says it's quacks like Sigarsky that give real scientists a bad name. Bad name? Sigarsky's a respected scientist, my grandfather protests. Raj shrugs. Well, my teacher says he's just another in a line of charlatans looking for the fountain of youth. The bus brakes squeal. This is our stop, I tell my grandfather, pulling him after me. I look at Raj. Nice to meet you. He nods. See you around. My grandfather glowers at him as he passes. Not if I have anything to say in the matter. I cast my leads, my mother announces when she walks into the kitchen. Let's order some takeout to celebrate. She goes to the drawer where we keep menus and starts riffling through them. How about Thai or Burmese, she suggests, or there's a new Korean barbecue place that I've been dying to check out. I don't eat any of that stuff, my grandfather says. If you tried it, you might like it, my mother cajoles him. A belligerent look crosses his face. I don't want to try it. I like Chinese food. It's reliable. You can walk into any Chinese restaurant and I know what I'm getting. And know what you're getting. At the talk of Chinese food, he has made me hungry. I will take wonton soup, I say. My mother sighs. Fine, she says, and a little of her excitement has gone out of her voice. When my mother returns from picking up the food, we settle at the stools at the counter. My grandfather digs around in his carton suspiciously. This doesn't look like the mugu gai pan I usually get. It looks spicy. You know I don't like spicy food, Melissa. It's regular old mugu gai pan, Dad, my mother says. My grandfather takes a bite and delivers the verdict. It's not spicy, he says. Good, my mother replies. I was really worried. Humph, he says. Did you ask for extra soy sauce? Yes, Dad, it's in the bag, she says, rolling her eyes at me. Well, in other news, the kids that I cast as Emily and George are amazing. My grandfather's head snaps up. You're doing Our Town? That shows a snooze, Melissa. He's right. I've seen it before, and not much happens. It's basically about these people who live in a small town called Grover's Corners. My mother likes to stage it because it has a big cast, so lots of kids can get a part. My mother starts lecturing to him on like he's one of her students. Excuse me, but Our Town is quite possibly the best play ever written about the totality of the human experience. Well, too bad it's so boring, my grandfather snarks. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's an amazing play, a hallmark of American playwriting. You just don't have any flair for drama, Dad. My grandfather yawns widely. The phone rings and I leap up to answer it. Bonjour, my dad says in a hearty voice. I take the phone into the hallway. Hey, Dad, how's it going? I'm tired of chasing Jean Valjean every night, but I'm not complaining about it. He got the part of Javert in the touring production of Les Miserables. He's been on the road since August. The play is a big break for him, but it doesn't feel the same without him around. My dad's the only one who stayed home with me. My dad's the one who stayed home with me when I was little so that my mom could go get her teaching degree. He says trying to keep a toddler entertained was the best acting experience he'd ever had. Where are you, I ask. Iowa City. Do they have a pool at the hotel? Yep, indoor. The toilet's been acting up again, I say. My father groans. I'll take care of it as when I swing back through. Even though he doesn't live here anymore, he always takes care of the house things for my mom. I miss you, I say. I miss you too, he says. My grandfather says something loudly, and my mother shouts back. Their voices carry into the hall. Sounds like there's company, my dad says. Grandpa's over for dinner. Don't tell me. You're having Chinese, he says in a dry voice. How'd you know? My father snorts over the phone. That old man never changes. I look at my grandfather in the kitchen. He's slumped in the chair, his long hair brushing his shoulders, his shirt hanging on his skinny body. Well, I don't know about that, I say. And then chapter 8, The Possible. I have science first period. My teacher's name is Mr. Ham, and all the kids make fun of him behind his back by doing oinking sounds. But I kind of like him. He's funny and wears silly ties that have lobsters and cupcakes. I barely made it to class in time this morning because we were running late. My grandfather wouldn't leave until he finished printing something off of the internet. I didn't even have time to go to my locker and get my science textbook. Naturally, the first thing Mr. Ham says is, please open your textbooks to page 30. I groan. You can share with me, Momo whispers and slides her book between us. Thanks, I whisper. At lunch, it's Sloppy Joe Day. No one's exactly sure what's in the Sloppy Joes, but everyone agrees that they're gross. After I get through the lunch line, I'm looking for Brianna when I hear someone shouting my name. Ellie, over here. My grandfather is sitting at the table and waving wildly at me. I've saved you a seat. He's wearing another interesting outfit today. White button-up shirt with a light blue tie, polyester khakis, and of course, black dress socks. The quirkiest part of his outfit today is the ponytail holder. It's one of mine, a bright pink one, and it kind of works on him. He taps a pile of papers in front of him. I'm going to show that Raj character. That's what he calls him now, that Raj character. Is that what you were printing out this morning, I ask? What are they, anyway? My articles. Articles? I've told you I've published quite a lot. I'm very well known. I have a virtual fan club in Finland, you know, he says. You're famous? His shoulders dip a little. It only has 231 members, he admits, but even so, they're going to go nuts when I finally announce my success with T. Malvinus. I'm going to be the next Jonas Salk. It's like he's talking about a relative who I'm supposed to know, but I've never met. Who's Jonas Salk, I ask. My grandfather shakes his head. Are you learning anything at all in this place? He looks past me. If this country spent half as much time on science education as cheering on idiots with a ball, you'd all know who Jonas Salk is. I turn to see what he's looking at, and I feel a stab of pain. At the edge of the lunch court, a bunch of girls are throwing the volleyball around. Brianna's with them. She spikes the ball, and the girls collapse on the ground in laughter. I force myself to look away. Tell me about Salk, I say. Jonas Salk developed the vaccine for polio. I'm almost afraid to ask, but I do anyway. What's polio? Why, polio is a terrible disease. It left children crippled, killed them. Salk and his group of scientists pioneered a vaccine to prevent it. He even tested it on himself. Himself? It seems nuts to me, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Was he a mad scientist or something? My grandfather sits up straighter and stares at me hard. All scientists are a little mad, Ellie. For a moment, I think he's kidding, and then I realize he's serious. Average people just give up at the obstacles we face every day. Scientists fail again and again and again, sometimes for their whole lives. But we don't give up because we want to solve the puzzle. I like puzzles, I say. Yes. Have you ever tried to put a puzzle together and given up because it was too hard? I nod my head yes. Well, scientists never give up. They keep trying because they believe in the possible. The possible? That it's possible to create a cure for polio, that it's possible to sequence the human genome, that it's possible to find a way to reverse aging, that science can change the world. And I get it. The palm trees sway in the breeze, its fronds brown and shedding. Something drifts inside of me, like a puzzle snapping into place. I look at my grandfather. I think I know where Raj hangs out after school, I say.